You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. Hope you're doing well and you are enduring this very bizarre COVID-19 influenced time in a way that doesn't drive you crazy, basically. And this should help because I have Piotr Wiwczarek. He is the frontman and the lead guitarist for Poland's legendary Vader. Now, the reason for the chat with Pete is to talk up the very excellent Solitude In Madness. This is their brand new album for 2020, and lo and behold, I don't have a release date on me, but it'll be sometime soon. Of course, I get an advance copy, and I've listened to it a few times, as you'll hear through the podcast. This is one of those very engaging podcast episodes where we talk about all sorts of stuff. So, done for your entertainment during these pandemic times. Here he is, Piotr Wiwczarek from Vader.
Hello.
Hey, Pete, how's things?
Hey.
Yeah, you're surviving. I think Poland's in lockdown as well, isn't it? It's not like Sweden, is it, where people can walk wherever they want?
No. We are locked down. So we locked down, and I'm grounded, actually. But, it's... Actually, I use opportunity to stay with family, so I was missing that for a long time.
Nice. Yeah, I bet, mate. Being a musician who's on the road bloody 8 months out of the 12 months in the year, at least it gives you an opportunity to connect with mates and family and probably just take some downtime and watch a bit of Netflix.
So, as you see, like, even the baddest side got the good side, sometimes.
Oh, God. Yeah, I had an interview.
Not longer, I hope.
Well, just the interview. I was on an interview just before I jumped on the call now to you, and I was just saying that we're about 2 weeks into it, and the kids are starting to go a bit stir crazy. I've got a 5 and a 6-year-old daughters, and outside of just letting them watch TV, what can you do? Like the park across the road from me is shut. Like it says literally. Can you imagine? It's a closed sign on a big park. That's right across the road from me where I normally play golf and the kids run around in their scooters and bikes and stuff. But, mate, it's just very unusual times we're in at the moment. But essentially, it's necessary.
Yeah, but that's a global situation. We should understand it, cooperate, and stay in discipline. That's the only way to kill the virus.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been saying the same thing. So. But look, let's talk about the music, Pete. And last time we had a chat was about 2 or 3 years ago now, a while ago now. But I'm a fan. I wouldn't expect you to remember the conversation, but I've definitely been a Vader fan for a long time, about as long as anybody really in Australia could be. When I can never remember the name of the bloody album that I had of yours. De Profundis. There you go. That's the first one I got back in 94 and 95 when that came out. And it made a real impact on me. It was the first band really outside of the UK and the US that I really, especially from Eastern Bloc and Eastern Bloc country, where I really started paying attention to what was happening in other parts of Europe and South America. So it's really difficult to know where to start with you because you are 12 albums into a fairly unlikely career, if I could be bold enough to say that. But I could be wrong. I think you're literally the only former Eastern Bloc band to remain intact through the fall of the Iron Curtain and the democratisation of information through the internet. Frankly, mate, nothing has stopped you. You've just kept on going. And this new album, I had it on, it's so good, I had it on twice last night. I was drinking my Jack Daniels and it ended and I put it on again. Solitude in Madness. And look, really, and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke up your ass, but it's truly up there with De Profundis. Your solos are stove hot on this one here. You've never sounded better. And the songwriting, you're evergreen. You between yourself, Testament and Sepultura, it's like the dawn of a new age. Everything is just working again, and I feel like it's the early 90s or something, or the mid 90s, just with how much energy is emanating from the work that you're doing. But to cap all of that off, mate, you must feel a tremendous sense of accomplishment with how this album has turned out.
It's always pretty motivating, to hear such words. So thank you for that, first. We do what we do. We just keep doing that for, it's going to be 4 decades soon. And it's really hard, to say that personal, because this is actually pretty standard and normal to me. I'm just a fan of the music, and it's a good thing is just listening. It was and still is not enough. So I turned and it's just into creativity, and so we started a band, and couple of years after that, so we focused more on playing, and then like years after that, I took a decision just to be a musician by profession, so then everything started to be more serious. I mean, for playing, because I had a chance to focus 100% on the music only. So that's why we're busy, guys. Like, we were always busy, and actually that's a good thing. It's life is not maybe easy just to stay on the road all the time, stay just away from the families. But that's was the choice, and it's a good life. Just that's a chosen life, and that's why, like, complaining, it's not a good thing. And I'm really far from that. So I like to play, first of all. So playing live, be on tour. So actually, that's the meaning of Vader, and that's the meaning of metal, in my opinion. And recording albums is just like a step, just like preparing new songs for next door. So for me personally, recording is fun. Of course, it's just challenging in the studio. It's just this creative work. Just putting together all those, ideas I have in my mind, in my brain, collected in years and months. It's just spanning them, in the studio. But all in all we create in the studio is just to prepare the songs, to play them live on stage. And this is actually what I love in the metal and in just being in Vader, and so nothing changed for years in that, and it's nothing gonna change, I think.
Yeah, no, I hope not. It doesn't need to. It's working now better than it ever has, frankly. And look, I've had to ask this question on just about every call that I've made over the last week or 2 weeks or so. There's probably about a dozen episodes now, but I mean, really, some of the albums that are coming out, there's from you guys, Catatonia. I was talking to the bassist last night from that band. The only issue that I see coming up is that people might overlook this album because you can't tour behind it at the moment. And the data that certainly we've got here in Australia is we're probably going to be locked down for up to 6 months. Definitely 3 months, but 6 months is a reasonable time to suggest that we'll be locked down for. And borders, I don't think, are going to be open for another 12 to 18 months at a worst-case scenario.
That's why, it's really hard to do any plans for the future. And, of course, we forget about all this summer season already, but we still plan, to start. This is just, the alpha plan, let's say. So just to start touring with the new album already in September here in Europe. But this is just in theory, because nobody knows what's going to happen. We may just hope that if the people, will cooperate, and if the people are not going to spread the disease like further, so maybe somebody gonna just start, maybe the life get back on trail, and we can start touring. I'm still afraid that after the longer break, so everybody gonna hit the road. That's gonna be mass, and I think it might not be like that, and probably this still might be under control. I mean, for crowd, for next half year. That's what I'm afraid of. But all in all, so we have to plan, even if everything's going to be delayed. And so this all start with plans, So that's like all the bands. So we do plans, and we will just see what's going to happen, In the meantime, we can prepare for the touring, so we can just, prepare for the album, which is going to be out soon. Just to stay connected online, It's actually first time I really support, a computer and the social media and internet connection, because regularly I'm a huge enemy of that stealing life and staying in front of computer for hours or days, months. But this is a situation, so it helps a lot. This is a tool that makes all difference. And so even if we stay separated, isolated from each other, so we can still stay connected like using this tool as as it is for, as designed for, and so that's a good thing. So as far as we can stay connected, so we can still continue life in other way. Even being a musician, we can just do something at home, and just wait for the better situation. That's not all the way. It's.
Yeah, it's a really good way of putting it. And I think just about everybody listening, or half the people listening, because I plan on releasing this as a podcast episode for my podcast series, if that's okay, but feel the same way you do prior to COVID-19 hitting about social media. I mean, Twitter is just a bloody cesspit, and Facebook isn't far from it at times. Facebook's a lot better, I'll be frank about that. Twitter is just fucking awful, with what people are prepared to say to each other and hide behind pseudonyms. But I'm exactly the same as you, mate. I actually really grateful for it at the moment, and the ability to reach out to people and have conversations and the like. And I've seen my podcast listens go through the roof in the last week or so, like double what it normally is, because people have got time on their hand and they're looking for things to be basically pass the time to, being given that we're all sort of housebound. So you make some really profound points around that, and what I hope comes from that is that we enter into a bit of a new age, because I think it's going to happen anyway. We're going to enter into a new epoch as a consequence of being locked down in COVID-19. I certainly don't feel like we're going to have, EU-style no borders, which I personally think is bullshit, and the sovereign countries and states are sort of, they're being bullied by bigger entities like the EU and the like. I think those things are going to now go away. And that's all tied in with, it's not too broad a jump to make this, I hope, but the way people talk to each other on social media. You've got to be polite on social media, and I've always tried to be. I haven't had any barneys with anybody except for a few Kiwi rugby fans, but they deserve it. Who cares? But that's just sport. That doesn't mean anything. But I hope from here, what we're able to do is basically form just have a bit of a think about how we want to treat each other and speak to each other, particularly when we're hiding behind anonymous pseudonyms.
That's what we're doing, man. Yeah. It's a bad situation, but it's a situation. So it's not going to be forever. It's just it's not the first time humanity deal with a pandemic. It's so actually we're in a better situation because we have internet. Imagine just like those people like dealing with like really huge like problems and having no phones, no connection, anything. That were really bad, but now, so actually it's a really good situation. And the virus itself, it's a little bit easier to control if you just stay separated, because it's very sneaky, enemy. But as far as virus is just separated and there's no chance to spread it, so it just dies, and that's our virus. It's very strong, but only when can be spread. That's why the isolation is so important in this way. So understanding, and this is priority at the moment. Because how. So if you just teenage metalhead, or just regular teenage guy, so it's really hard to stay home. And usually the young generations, they really love to stay home in a computer, but it's always opposite way when they have to. So it's always working opposite way, and everybody just want to get out. I know, because like I was teenage and everybody was. So this is how it is. So the age has rules, and we just like being older, so we should just have to explain how important it is just to stay disciplined. It's hard for some people, but it's really, really the only way.
Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it, at the moment? The lockdown notwithstanding, it feels a bit like it did when we were growing up in the 80s and early 90s, meaning I'm seeing far more kids out on the road sort of doing things, meaning riding on their bikes and doing things like that, things that I haven't seen, honestly, in 20, 25 years or so. And I think what that is because people are locked up, they're trying to entertain themselves, and they're getting back to sort of going back outside again, keeping the social distance stuff in mind, definitely. But yeah, there's that balance that you're talking about, and that discipline. I think because even for these 14 and 15-year-olds that are used to spending almost every waking hour outside of going to school on bloody social media, even for them, this is just a little bit too much for them to be locked down into that.
Yeah, it's just all about discipline. You be younger, you hate discipline. So nobody want to follow. Just you got the blood, you just boiling, and you want to just go in action. Like anyways. That's regular. So that's why the older should take command and just explain, not to beat everybody just for like somebody try to get out, because that's pretty natural.
Yeah.
And of course, cities, it's a way worse situation because it's more crowded. It's just really hard. Like I live separated actually for more than 15 years. I live in the woods, and it's just like in a distance from even the closest village.
Yep.
So to me, the situation is not really that bad, that different. It's just the only difference is like we just go in shopping like just once, so like every 2 weeks or 1 week, just to get something to survive, and that's it. But the rest is the same. But those big cities, man, that's bad. It's really much worse to stay isolated in such places like you see it. It's just and it's different.
Yeah, big cities. There's two places I wouldn't want to be at the moment. I don't live in a big city either. I live in it's suburbia where I'm at, but it's very regional, northern Gold Coast. But I wouldn't want to be in a big city like Sydney or Melbourne, or on a bloody cruise ship for that matter, because those things are disgusting. They're just floating petri dishes.
Same here. Now, I was born in a city, not that big like Melbourne or Sydney, but still. And, I was living in the city for like more than 30 years, and it's all right. But since I found this place, in the nature, so I'm not able to get back to cities. I feel so much better in here. I know it's in the distance, so it just forces you to travel if you need something. But actually, for a guy like me, when I'm just like almost all my life is just travel, being on tour at times. So just staying home, it's just something just don't to get mad, totally. So I can just relax, just calm down, slow down. Oh man, that's all about that. It's just like maybe this opportunity now for everybody, global, So it's give a chance to slow down life, because like I got feeling that, so we just everything is going too fast, too quick, and we're losing our life. So now it's time just to stay just home and to think about that just a little bit, and slow down and everything. So it helps really. And, it's just using opportunity, because anyway, we have to stay isolated. So it's about a time just to think about everything, to think about ourselves, life. And, it's not bad, sometimes to slow down. Maybe not in music, but just in life.
I agree 100% with what you're saying. Hey, the other thing too is, and I hope you don't mind me asking this question, but I really admire Poland for different reasons, and Polish people for another reason, and because I don't think critics realise that your country has really only had contiguous boundaries since 1990. The way it is now, it's been like that since only about 1990, and there wasn't even a sovereign Polish state that existed between 1795 and 1918. It was that long. You were basically annexed by Russia and other powers. And but look, lately I've noticed, a bit like here in Australia, citizens and the government have rightly taken the view that Poland is for Polish people, and that the EU and the globalists, with their attempts to annul sovereign borders and homogenous European societies, can go and get fucked. But look, I realise you're a musician, but you're a smart guy. You've toured the world. You've seen a lot of things, and you're not a spokesperson for anybody else except for yourself as a Pole. But what's your take on things, given that Poland, like the Czech Republic and Hungary, has decided to plot their own course into matters like immigration and refugees and that sort of thing, rather than be bullied by the EU?
I always kept away from the politic, but Polish government, it's a really problem today. So actually Poland and the Polish citizens are totally split now, and this is absolutely crazy, because it looks like we just cannot, as a Polish, we cannot deal with real freedom, We have government chosen by some guys that think that we supposed to be a proud nation. I don't know, I don't understand this. It's nothing in just pride in to be proud of the nation and citizenship, but it doesn't mean we should do like deal like act like Nazis, and it's not that time, Actually, there's no border anymore. Like the cultures are mixing together, and of course, and every sword got like two blades now, if we say so, and we cannot just think. With one zeros, kind of style. It's not just black and white. And I sometimes get the feeling that in Poland, the people are really into that kind of thinking. So they into or against. There's nothing in between, and that's a problem. And really, seriously, that's one of those reasons why I hate politics. And this is just a game, and it's a dirty game just to get more votes and people and get more money and more control. That's it. And talking about like they want to good for people, that's bullshit. And it's always like that. It's always like that. People are changing, like situation changing around, but the greed is the same, and I never understood that. I will never understand it, And immigration, of course, it's the Polish people in the past, in the history, they were immigrants so often. Half America was built also by Polish people that had to escape from Poland because of restrictions, and the problems. So it's really like sad, to see the situation that like Poland cannot give hand, and to somebody who need that help. But the other problem is the mass of that, and sometimes from the other side, trying to be like a guy from the other side, like it looks like just for some people escaping from like Syria was later. It's just easier to go to the place where they're gonna get like free job, food, and everything.
That's it. Yeah, 100%.
Instead fighting for their own land. It's just sometimes you have to fight for your rights, fight for your land, not just to run away. It's just not that good. If in Poland nobody would fight, that Poland would not be existing anymore. Everybody would escape, and that'd be it. Probably partially it would be German, partially Russian or whatever. But it's how it is. So it's nothing just black or white. We should to feel the balance, and it's all about brain we have. It's just we should to use it sometimes, use a heart and brain, not just like to be like a robot, and don't to follow don't to act like by the book or something like that. It doesn't make sense. What I mean, just maybe hard to explain me, especially in English, but you know what I feel. It's just we should to just act like humans, to help somebody needs, but just don't just to make somebody's life easy just to make it easy. It's just we should to help to make somebody act to make life easy. If you know what I mean. That's always easy.
Yeah, you raise some really good points there. Sorry, you go.
It's good explanation. Like it's always better to teach somebody how to swim than to give them this thing to help to just stay on the surface. It's just
I think you raise some good points. The other thing I'll say about Polish people though is that majority of Poles who immigrated to Australia and to the US did so when there was no welfare on offer. So there was a promise of a better life, but you had to work hard for it. So the Polish in Australia, for example, and I think the US too, are known for being very hard workers historically, especially when they were coming into Australia in the 50s and 60s. They were doing the jobs that people couldn't and wouldn't do, especially coming out of course, Europe was smashed apart after World War II, and Polish people worked their asses off in all of the countries that they went to. And I think this is the issue politically that a lot of people have got, is that I don't think anybody sane doesn't want to help somebody out if they're in a state of need and distress. But it's that being taken advantage of feeling that I think is happening in country, even here in Australia, definitely Germany, absolutely France, and in the UK as well, certainly Sweden too, that is driving this hyper-nationalism, if you like, which is a reaction to this sort of stuff. And this is where... Yep.
actually it is a feeling globally. So you can feel that nationalism rising up now,
Mm.
and no, but this is not. Maybe this is more like it became just trendy, and and after that many years in Europe, probably same in Australia and US, there's no really any thread in those countries anymore. And after that many years, when we have like a next generation that just get nothing, just they can't feel any danger,
Mm.
they start to think in like dangerous way, again, because for some people it's just like just something different,
Mm.
and humanity never takes lesson, from the history, never. And just this goes like a circle, and if there is too long time in silence, like no thread, no nothing, no issue, the real issues in the countries, the people start to create them, in their own, and we are in a situation at the moment, so I got the feeling that this is all about that. And the immigrants, it's just a reason, one of those reasons, and like in 30s in Germany got the problem, economical problem, that was like just that. So some people, they use the situation just to rise up, and it was just not one guy, like usually, like everybody hates Hitler because it's not the one guy who made it. There's a whole situation made it, and not the situation in Germany, the whole world, I think. So it's always like that, if there is a situation and people just losing control on that, the water have to go somewhere, and then you lose control, and in the situation at the moment. So maybe the virus, actually, it's not, of course it's never a good thing, but in that political situation where everything started to be really shitty, politically.
Mm-hmm.
So the virus, look at that, virus, just everything calmed down now politically. Everybody's just focusing on a bigger problem, which is virus, because nobody, this is the enemy. You just don't, it doesn't give a fuck about political or which side you are at or whatever.
Mm.
So that's why, like, at least like all these, people who try to start any problem, whatever call you that,
Mm-hmm.
is stop doing it, and, there is even, whatever. But
no, you're making good points. Yeah, I think the only thing I'll say or the only thing I'll add, sorry, to what you said there is that, look, the middle class, meaning not the uber rich, not the people who are on welfare, but the mum and dads who have 2 and 3 kids that are working their asses off, that are paying off a car and a half, 2 cars, sending their kids through, not through a private school, but to a Christian school, this sort of thing. They're the ones that bear the brunt of a lot of the cost of a lot of this migration and a lot of the decisions that the EU was making. And you saw the yellow vest movement. This is the problem. France hasn't returned to a budget surplus since, I read a statistic the other day, since the late 70s. So effectively they're almost bankrupt as a nation. Of course they're not, because they've got a lot of product that they produce and a lot of people want to visit France and the like. But the problem is, you can be altruistic and you can extend the hand of friendship and welcome to people from other parts of the world. But when they come in and then when they disrespect the values of that country, and by extension the people that are actually paying the money into the tax system that gives them their welfare, that's where people get the shit. So I don't think it's a racial thing. I'll actually categorically say I don't think it's a racial thing whatsoever. It's just that when people have their daily life disrupted to the extent like the French people did, where they adopt the yellow vest movement, they say to the government, fuck off. Stop taking money out of my pocket just so you can fund your bullshit policies. And France has got all sorts of issues. We know that. There are no-go zones in Paris, as there are no-go zones in Sweden and Stockholm. Yeah.
I remember I was in Paris like in the late 90s, and now it's a huge difference. The same place is just ruined, And this is all about that, It's a problem is they not controlling everything like that. There's, it's not good just to take people in and then let them just be, because this never works like that, If you decide to take immigrants, especially in that masses, you should be ready just to give them a job or just give them a place, And first of all, it's the worst thing and the worst problem and the biggest mistake is just to let them just gather in one place, because this always is the source of a problem,
Yeah.
Look, America, of course, in America, there still are some places, with focus on nations, like in Chicago, there's like one of the biggest Polish society outside of Poland. You know what I mean? But even this is just fading away, and that's the point. If you let the people live among the others, so they will adopt. But if you let them just gather together in one place, they will start just to think that they taken control about everything. It's the same problem in France. It's the same problem in Sweden. Imagine there's like the people coming to Sweden. Sweden helped them, and now they said like fuck off to like Swedish police. They can't even in because they wanna keep the religion. They wanna keep the language and everything. What the hell? They fucking guests, Somebody help them, And that's the other side. They can't understand and can't fucking respect the help. And everything starts with that. Then, from the other side, the people start to afraid, because this is like a danger, And then the nationalism started to rise, because then the people try to hate, to beat them, because they scared, That's natural human feeling. And the problem is the politics should think before they do something, and that's the problem. It's easy to say, like, we taking immigrants, 1 million immigrants, to have more votes for them people who just not against it.
Absolutely, yeah.
but what next? What next? Actually, instead of helping, they starting the war, inside their own country, and that's a problem. If they would leave like 1-2 families and put them in some other place, people would love them, would help them, and they would just adopt and never more problems. Australia, that Australia or America, they live like that for century, And that's why there's no wars between races or something. Maybe some local things, but this is just like everywhere. Like the local is some people that like to beat,
Yeah, provincial shit. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm not talking about that small things. I'm talking about global problems, and how to solve that.
Yeah. Really, I don't know whether we can. That's the issue, mate. Because we've had this globalist view of multiculturalism now since the mid '70s or so, and Gough Whitlam brought it in here in Australia. So you've got sort of up to 5 generations now, because in some communities they have children a lot younger than other communities, and they have a lot of kids, and they're all really surviving through welfare. Really, I mean that's the only way that you can subsidise it.
We should understand the culture like a Middle East, something. They, they got like many wives. They got kids, And if there is a situation like in the middle of Europe when the kids not like there's not that many kids, and actually the government are trying to just to push people to have more kids, and they pay for that, like social. So imagine that if somebody comes with many wives and like 10 or 15 kids, they don't need to do anything because they just fed by government.
That's correct.
And
yeah.
It's not really fair because this should be controlled. That's the easiest way, but then everything leads to another problem. And I don't know, and this is just crazy.
Well, it got out of balance. So that's what happened with Brexit, because that was about nationalism.
Balance, it's all about it. The balance, like yin yang. We know that, like thousands ago, was that people understood this, how important balance is. But why not today? We have internet. We have just everything. We can control nuclear power, but we don't understand what balance is. In our life. So how at all to talk about anything if you don't understand what balance means? That's all about it.
You mentioned something earlier, and I wholeheartedly agree, which is that we don't learn from the past. We seem to be doomed to repeat it. Now, as I said, you've been around the world a lot, mate, so you've interacted with a lot of different people from a lot of different countries and a lot of different social stratas as well. So do you have a take on why we're doomed?
That's why I totally understand. I understand it, and that's why I'm trying, to talk if I have opportunity. We're not dealing with a theme with politics in Vader in lyrics or something, but always I'm trying to smuggle my thoughts and my feelings, emotions about that in between the lines. Like I create some stories, and the stories God like tells about it. Just of course because it's not set straight, so the interpretation might be vary, but still is, I'm still, maybe that's why the new Vader album is so fast and angry, because my anger in this world that's supposed to be so much easy to live. I don't understand how crazy it is around, and I don't understand people. That's why I still have so much to scream about. The anger inside is,
Well,
trust me,
yeah.
it's metal is all about anger. It's you can't be just good living guy, just giving like good metal music, because metal is about anger. And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on that basis, I'm glad that there's plenty of fodder out there for you to keep on doing what you're doing.
so it's really bad if you feel like really just isolated from everybody. Because like sometimes you want to be isolated, you just don't understand what's going on around. You think you understand the world because all these natural rules are pretty easy, to understand, and you just get out, you go to a city, and you see something you can't understand, and it's that's why the title is connected with that feeling, and or new album is.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. What other? Just talking about the album again, because the production sounds a lot like Eric Rutan had something to do with it. Now, I don't have a bio associated with it, but was it Eric that did the production, or who did you work with on that front?
No, Eric Rutan actually was an option to me, and I started to talk with him. Yet very, very early, actually, but then. And we were about to have agreement, and I was about just to pack my shit and just fly to Florida. But then that problem happened with Pat, and because Eric is a huge fan of Cannibal Corpse guys, so he just it was a must, He wanted just to help them to replace, for that bad moment, to just play guitar instead of Pat. And they had just some very serious, important tours coming up in those times.
Sure, yeah.
And he said that he very interested, but we had to delay that for like late summer or something. And it was like out of question to me. It was just way too late. The album was already delayed, so I just needed just to start to think about like entering the studio as soon as possible. So finally, we found the option. I talked to James. He just proposed like Grindstone. So I started to talk to Scott and the Grindstone, and we just decided to go there and to record. Like one of the reasons was James. Actually, he used to work in that studio and with Scott before with his band Divine Chaos. So that means he was feeling much better. So that stress in your place, and
okay.
how important drums is. Like we start with that.
Yeah.
If the backbone is done good, then everything else is just, a matter of time. It's like the good drumming just influence enough, and so the rest is just adding, if I can say.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, let me ask you this, because the sound that you guys pulled on this album here is a sound that I think Morbid Angel should have pulled on Kingdoms of Disdain, an album that I felt really let down by, to be honest with you. I thought the songs were there, but the sound was just terrible, and I've spoken to Steve Tucker about it, so he knows what my feelings are on it, and I still think the songs are there, and I could hear Steve probably for the first time ever. But did you hear that album?
Yeah, and I was just looking at, Morbid. I love Morbid Angel, and
likewise,
those the first 4 albums, it's a classic to me, and will stay classic forever. I just don't really understand. I was trying to understand why, because Trey is very challenging person. He's really he likes just to go somewhere, to progress, just to discover some lands, and he doesn't really care about like what people think. And just to me, being a fan, like that change, like the 7-string guitar, like tuning down to like deep, you can't just, I lost control just to recognize the riffs at all, and just. But I'm old school guy, so I might not understand this. This very deep, tuned guitar, and this kind of style. I don't really like that much. But I after that, after Dave came back for a moment,
Hmm.
and they released a Nevermore, song and a single, I was so filled with hope. It sounded like Morbid Angel,
Hmm.
And then came, that I album, and it's just Nevermore was actually probably the only song I really accepted, I really loved,
Sure.
But
Yeah.
the rest I just could not understand why, it's that's why I don't like to say about sound. This is just a matter of opinion, It's
Hmm.
subjective, and I never lost my respect to Morbid Angel for what they did, because they did a lot, and they still like absolutely great musicians, talented musicians. Just they choose the way I don't understand, and that's the only problem, and so I just not I'm not argue with like Morbid Angel today, because this is just something different. I just it's not something I follow with my taste of music, and I still feel huge respect to them. But musically, it's just some way I'm not gonna follow. Definitely.
Yeah, sorry, my cat has just jumped up on this table here. I don't know what she's doing, so I'm just going to get her down before she decides to pull us out and unplug us. You know what
You
cats are
have a
like.
cat.
Yeah,
That's good.
my daughter's got a cat called Snowflake, and it likes hanging around with me late at night for some reason. When I say late at night, when the kids have gone to bed, as it sounds like they have, she comes
I
into
understand.
me.
We have we have a ragdoll cattery, so we have like 30 of them or more, like just like
Oh
walking
my
around.
god.
Yes, but I know how sneaky they are, and it's just my room is probably the only room which is locked down for them, because then I would probably lose everything right here.
This one
But the
is
rest,
too, but she gets in. She opens the door. They're so smart, cats, and cunning, aren't they?
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we I love cats, and if they live with humans, they understand humans, and if you run cattery, so you raise the cats just to sell them to give them for somebody. Sell is not good. I hate that word, but
Yeah.
you give them for somebody, and they should allow the other place just at at once, so
Hmm.
and that's why if you some people they keep the cats away, they just care about money, that's it. But so we care about cats. They
Oh, good on you,
live,
mate. Yeah. You got a heart.
they they so great and beautiful, and so nice to humans if they can live together,
Hmm.
and of course, you can recognize different in characters. They like humans, They cats, but they're different, And it's really, really lovely, like to watch that, watch the cats growing up, how they change, and I love that, I was always in the biology, into nature, and
Hmm.
and I'm so happy that I found a girl that's absolutely so into that. So my kids also, so actually the cattery is run by my wife and my,
All
my
right.
daughter. So I'm just a helper here. I'm just a supporter and helper.
You supply the tunes. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, we've got a dog already. We've got an English Bull Terrier who's getting into the last phase of his life, unfortunately. But he's been a very loyal companion through the years. And my daughter really wanted a cat, so we thought we'd go there. But you know what little girls are like. If you've got daughters, mate, they want hamsters and ponies and all sorts of animals. But guess what? In my kids' case, they're not prepared to do a lot of the upkeep, meaning the feeding and walking and all that sort of stuff. So we've got to do it all.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just our kids are, mate. But you said something really profound about Trey a moment ago, because I've actually, a year ago or so, I reached out to his mother and she appeared on the podcast episode. So I've actually spoken to Trey's mum, who's a lovely lady, beautiful lady,
Yes.
just a kind soul. And what you said about Trey marries up with some of the things that she said about him is that you mentioned that he likes discovering new land, he likes doing new things, he doesn't really repeat himself, and that's so true. And the other bloke who I spoke to has spent a lot of time with him, certainly back in those days, is Mike Browning from Nocturnus. I spoke to him just a couple of days ago, and he gave me a lot more insight too on Trey and his development as a musician, and all of it really only adds to my view that he's probably the most. I don't know. There's no such thing as best in that category, but I think music in general would sound very different if Trey wasn't around death metal, heavy metal in general would not sound the way it does if he hadn't been around.
You know, he's one of those guitarists that like challenge so much that they influence like the generations, like with his play. And the same here, you know, I started my education I was not yet playing. So actually my education as a guitarist, I started with Judas Priest, with KK and Glenn, you know, playing. And actually probably that's why I love, you know, V-shapes guitar, and I love that tremolo, you know, system and noisy leads, you know, so much since the very beginning. And but then that was natural progress, you know, Slayer, which was like actually like the more extreme version of Priest, you know, with some, you know, added, you know, feelings from punk rock, like, you know, fast music. And Morbid Angel was like a next step with that. But, you know, actually, even if Trey, he started with absolutely different guitar, because actually his hero is Eddie Van Halen, you know. So it's different technique and you feel it. But he's, you know, I love his play with, maybe that's because I'm so much into this noisy, this kind of leads, you know, tremolo. And his play was so mad, you know. Azek Toth was a mad god, you know, in Sumerian magic. So it's absolutely proper, you know, nickname for him, because you know, he's when he was playing Love, you know, sometimes he was just pull off the, you know, the bridge from the guitar. It's so emotional, and I love that, you know. I love that, you know, so much, you know. And you know, I never was that much into that, you know, shredders like Malmsteen with all these melodies, like, you know, this kind of stuff. You know, I still like kind of influence, because like I love to get a little bit of like different technique, you know, in my play. And but I always loved more this emotional, you know, play, even if that it's more not like learned kind of game, that more like improvisation, like on stage, you know. But it's, you know, I love music because this is so emotional, and especially in metal, and that's why this is closer to my heart than, you know, like practicing for hours just to play like some really hard to play the Eddie Van Halen kind of like harmonies or shit, you know. And you know, I don't want to just know everything, you know. It's just, that's why I focus on one thing. Like, I think I follow that rule in my whole life, you know. I don't want to be alpha omega and everything. I follow what I enjoy, you know, and in my profession and in my hobby, everything, you know. Just, it's so much better, you know, because it's like a fire for your passion, and passion is all we have. It's a good, you know, in our life.
So true. Yeah,
it's just like the engine which brings on the going on in a life with a smile on face. And even if there is a problem, if you got passion, the passion will always help you, you know. In music, not music, whatever you got. But if you're passionate, you always feel better, even if the situation around is really bad, you know.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said something about KK, because I've always considered you the death metal KK, in that I've played some of your riffs before as I've played KK's riffs, and mate, believe me, the way you got the bar chord structure, it's very similar. It's very similar. And KK, of course, not a lot of people realise he wrote a lot of those classic songs. It wasn't Glenn, it was KK coming up with the riffs. And to me, you are that. You're the death metal KK, and that your strength is writing these inimitable riffs. And they were all across De Profundis, and of course they're here on Solitude of Madness.
You know, it makes little sense in your words, because actually Spider is more like Glenn. If I follow him like as a musician and his style of playing and everything, so it makes sense. So we're gonna say that we kind of like a modern Judas Priest, right? But just more brutal.
You're not far from it, mate. Yeah, you're not far from it at all. But what about the? You go. Sorry.
Pleasure, that'd be an honor, you know, to be just a follower in this way, you know, just to be more extreme version of that band, because I'm still a fan, you know. It took years since I was watching, you know, KK on a poster on my wall when I was a teenage guy, and until I got a chance to meet him, shake his hand, you know, and just to give all my love for what he did for me with the music, and which is just personality. And actually, it was last year when I was just in Birmingham on that show with Ripper, with
yeah, killer.
Alice, and that was killer show. And I'm so happy that I've been there as a VIP even, so I could just
Nice.
talk to them, just like it's absolutely that was brilliant show. And I'm so glad that they're gonna continue that because this was really, really, really like on the old days. Like I missed all those decades when Priest were promoting they like the most known like legendary albums because I was living in Poland. There was no chance like to see them. But now actually I got that feel when I was in the Birmingham. It was just when probably like in those days when Priest was playing and were promoting the Killing Machine, those albums before they became so huge,
Yeah.
That was absolutely great. That was absolutely great, and it's really hard to find work how I enjoy that, on that night.
I can tell. Yeah, I just love that he's got a band out now called Steel Mill, KK Steel Mill, I think he's calling it, and
Yeah.
he's got half of the members. I think so. He's got Les Binks, who used to be in the pre-big Judas Priest.
That was crazy because I got that Unleashed in the East album. This was one of my absolutely favorite album all times. Actually everything started with that one. And I had all autographs, but I said I probably never gonna have Les Binks. He was playing on that show. And Ram, this is just wow. I got just this album. I got signed by everyone. That's it's just maybe symbolic meaning to me, but still means a lot. And Les Binks, man, he's like age guy, but he was drumming so good, and you could just feel he enjoyed that, so much, and that was really, really, that's always very motivating to me when I see the bands like the legendary bands coming back, on stage and playing with so just joy all the time, The same feeling when I met Uriah Heep for the first time. After that many years, I got a chance to meet them, to see them. I could not believe my eyes and my ears. Like, this band is so great, on stage. Absolutely. It was absolutely astonishing to me that night, really.
Uriah Heep used to have Lee Kerslake as a drummer. And I think the album, is it Abominigog? Sorry, I think I'm getting it wrong, but I think it's...
Abominigog, exactly. The
Yeah.
red one is, with the creature.
Yeah, the devil on the front. Yeah, I remember being fascinated by that as a kid because I thought it was a really heavy... It's not, of course. It's more like a rock album, but I thought it'd sound like Venom. It reminded me of Venom's Black Metal, the album cover. So, yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, great band.
But I missed Uriah Heep really because like when I started with Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep was a bit too melodic to me, and they were like following more
Agreed, yeah.
something like Hippie Days, especially those days. I just missed them, and for the next decades, I just forgot them. Of course I respect all names like Deep Purple, like Uriah Heep, like still. Sometimes I play the song or something just to bring back the old icons, to bring back the old music, and after all those years, like I was in Wrocław in the city, and the Uriah Heep was playing. I was like, I need to go there to check the band after those years, and then I was shocked. Trust me, it was just the power they play with and the joy, and. After that, I could just meet them, and these guys, they are legends, Actually, the same feeling you mentioned, Venom. It was the same feeling when we were touring together with Venom Inc. And when I got
Awesome
the chance
show,
to talk to Jeff or to Mantas or to
Jeff, I've spoken to him before.
I could not believe this is the band that changed totally. They inspired Slayer, they inspired Metallica, and so many more. And they guys is so just like that. It's like no any rockstership. Like you could talk to them and they could just feel the passion they play with. It's absolutely great, And same with Uriah Heep, It's absolutely great feeling when you got the chance to meet people who created the scene, created the music, inspired like millions, and they still just like us, without like bullshit, acting like. And why I'm mentioning that, because like from the opposite way, I met young guys, young bands that just get success, and sometimes they behave absolutely, I don't understand that,
Hmm.
They big rockers than, everybody else together, and I don't get it. I
I know
never.
exactly what you're saying. I just literally had this conversation an hour ago with a local artist because I don't do a lot of local band interviews because they come across quite rude in their emails and the way they want to be interviewed. Whereas when I'm talking to someone like yourself, you're a great example. And you mentioned Manchester, so I know him as Jeff Dunn, as you do too. I mean, the stage name is else aside, but Jeff's a guy that he was the first bloke whose guitar lines I learned how to play because I could play it. And and to actually talk to the guy who my 15 and 16-year-old hands were playing his riffs trying to figure them out, and then to have a chat to him and for him to be as cool as what he was. I know exactly what you're saying. And Tony Dolan, Demolition Man as well. Just awesome, awesome guys. And I was talking to, Dan Beeler from Exciter. Have you toured with or have you done anything with Exciter before?
Oh, I wish I could. Maybe a day will come. It's really hard to say anything about it jamming now.
but same deal, brother. Like you talk to these established guys, like people don't realize Exciter came out before Metallica released Kill 'Em All. That album was released a full 6 months before Kill 'Em All came out. They were first. And people don't realize that this little band from Canada with a singing drummer, and I mean,
it's the same. It's the same. It's a Razor. No, it's the Exciter, Razor, all those bands who just were like at the beginning. So like it's absolutely no. And
but the point is, there's no big head with these guys. You talk to them, and they're so humble, and there's so much humility. As I say, it's like talking to you, man. It's just people who have a right to be arrogant aren't, yet bands who've done fuck all, to be honest with you. The impression that I get is like that it's like a privilege for me to be talking to them or something as an interviewer at times. Not it's rare. I've got to say it's rare. I'm not talking in general here. I'm talking about the rare occasions. But when it does happen, it's always from a local band. It's never from a big international touring band like you. I don't get it, but it is how it is.
I try. I of course, if I really enjoy music, actually, personalities, do not really matter. But you know how it is. If you got a chance, to opportunity to meet somebody whose music you love, and you see that he's so good person, so you love that even more. And if you see that somebody act like an asshole, it doesn't mean like I'm gonna just throw away all my albums like some people do. I don't understand. I respect people for what they did for the music and what music they created, but still there is something that's what I mean. It's something which is not really nice, and so that's why I'm so glad that the people I respect, for the music they created, they really, really good people. They great musicians by great people too. That's always great connectivity. It's just these two things.
It's really interesting though, because they say don't meet your idols, and I've met just about everybody I've ever wanted to meet, and they've exceeded my expectations. You know what I'm saying? Like meeting musicians that have been there, that have done it, that have been an inspiration to tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions in terms of Eddie Van Halen's case. I haven't spoken to Van Halen before, but I'd love to. I'd love to speak to Mick Jagger, who I haven't heard a bad word about from an interview perspective subject. He's always been very congenial and civil. And yeah, they say never meet your idols. Well, balls to that. As I say, I've done over 500 interviews, and everybody I've spoken to that's of a relative level of fame has been so cool to me.
Oh, you know what? It's probably... That's why I'm trying to to stay away from that huge like starship moments and I never was put in that situation, but I can just imagine how hard it is for people. You mentioned the Mick Jagger, like imagine like the man who was just playing the music like like 60s, they were always huge, and how many millions of people they recognizable, so they can't even walk to do shoppings, because they probably they couldn't just like
it's horrible to think about it. Yeah.
That's actually the problem of being really famous, and of course everybody want to be famous, and because that's nice to just be, but actually because I know that price you have to pay for that, I really like to be not, really like to stay in the shade, and just to inspire with the music, just to go into play. And of course, with music, Vader plays, it's not a chance just to be that famous, But this is the burden, Actually, if you recognizable, if your face is just everywhere. And I don't know if I could do that, that way. I absolutely respect my privacy, and I cannot imagine, for example, somebody just trying to take a picture of me just shaving my balls or something like that. Just what I mean. It's just like some paparazzi shit. I don't get it. So probably I would have just problems with that because it's really hard to keep the privacy being that famous person. And it always leads to some bad things, and, some people cannot deal with that, Look at that. It's really hard to understand. Like, I never understood people who commit suicide being so famous, and it's sad,
Yeah. I tell you the level of fame that scares the shit out of me for the people is the level of fame that someone like Britney Spears accomplishes. Because that's not fame anymore. That's something else entirely different. That's just, you are part of the public sphere. You are no longer an individual. And look what happened to her. Like, forget about the music for a moment. Let's just talk about her. We've got kids, okay? Her fucking parents, mate, should be hung, drawn, and quartered for what she went through. There is no way I would expose my daughter to what she had to be exposed to at such a young age. I've spoken to people that were around her, that interviewed her and stuff, and she was in Japan. Fiona Horn from Def FX was telling me that she was in Japan on just a bullshit schedule, like 5 a.m. through to midnight, that sort of thing, and she was so tired. And she's just a money magnet for business interests, and she's basically crazy at this point. I understand she can't even make a decision for herself financially these days.
But, I think Britney, she's one of those, victims of music business. And I absolutely hate that. I hate using kids, for that, because they lost their childhood, they lost their youth totally, because they were just put in that situation that even the grown-up man could not deal. And she's a girl, she was a girl, and she became just like that in a moment, that one of the most famous person ever.
That's right.
And how to deal with that after you're losing it. This is, you're losing position. And, music business is like that. You can just be a queen, and a week after you got nothing. It's pathetic. And it's just one of the reasons why I love metal and I hate this pop business, because it's like that. It's using people. As far as they bring money, they good. But if not, they nothing. And that's absolutely something different than something I was taught by my grandparents. I raised up with, and it's really hard to respect the other people, and if you see something like that, because it's total disrespectful, and I don't know. It's just, I don't understand it. So I'm so glad that I'm absolutely, this is, I think, one of the biggest success of Vader, that we have so great respect in the world for the music we did, for that many years. That's even harder. And but I never felt that I can't feel like privacy on be like a normal guy, like among the fans that that made this happen, for us as a band. So,
have you ever had a situation where you felt fans have been a bit too intrusive? You know what I mean, like when they won't let you get back on a tour bus and all that sort of stuff.
I think I can deal with that. If it's really getting like bad, I just walk away, with a smile on my face. I never really just show the middle finger, to the fans, or just sometimes even I got a headache or bad day or whatever. I try just to rather like to keep away than just to show that don't to behave like an asshole, It's just,
you carry yourself well. I get it.
The fans do not deserve it. I am a fan too, and I know how I would feel if somebody would just show me a middle finger, get the fuck off, or something like that. I would never like that. Would be like feel respect to the personalities like I like. So I just try to be the same. I just try to like imagine the situation from the other side, and I know the fans, the fans actually, the people that support Vader and that buying the albums, that come into the shows, like they made it, possible for us. Vader would never exist that long without fan support. And that's easy to explain. So they deserve at least like a little bit of attention. That's I know. Just the only problem is sometimes if there's many of them, and I'm just one among, so it's really hard physically to deal with that. But trust me, I'm trying. I'm trying to do the best.
Oh, I know.
I can.
Yeah, I know. People have met you here have described you as fantastic. People have met you backstage and stuff. You've always had all the time in the world for fans who want to interact. And look, I've found that too. I caught up with the guys.
The real fans will always understand the situation, but sometimes there are people who can't. I had a situation sometimes where I'm leaving the stage, like been just soaked with, just steel with stage uniforms, like trying to take breath after some blast beats, and somebody's asking just to sign an album, and I'm trying to explain that just give me 5-10 minutes, I'd be there, and then after I went back, I heard behind just fucking asshole rockstar, something like that. I don't like this, because I never act like that, but sometimes I need just like 5-10 minutes to change. Like, don't want to just go to the crowd and smelly, and some people, but I wouldn't call that guy, a fan. It's just like a fucking angry idiot,
Yeah, totally. I know.
That's it. But I'm just an example of how people can behave,
I had a very it wasn't interesting, but I love Corrosion of Conformity. So when the guys toured, and I'd spoken to the guys, and I was one of the few people that had spoken to Reed for an interview before he passed away. Rest in peace, good old Reed there. But when I spoke to the tour manager, John, great John here, he lined up. He said, "Go and meet the guys afterwards if you want." I said, "Yeah, great. I'll definitely meet Pepper and the guys. Woody, I'm down for that." And anyway, I'm very respectful of the fact that you've gone off stage and.
Andy, I'm sorry, but I absolutely forget about reality. So I got the next interview in 30 minutes, but I need a break.
There you go. That's where it ended. Of course, we could have talked for a lot longer, but Pete had to go off to the next interview, and I really appreciate that he gave me so much of his time, proving once again that the legends, they're legends. Simple as that. So my name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. Of course, I host the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. That was Piotr Wiwczarek from the Polish extreme metal legends Vader. Thanks so much for listening.